So thank you for joining us. I'm Madalena. For those of you I have not met yet, I am the DBE Program Chief for WisDOT. I am joined today by my team member, Kathleen Panak. She is our GFE analyst. So many of you have also had some interaction with her. I was unable to present information
went off.
Conference last week, and so Kathleen was there. If you attended, some of this information will be familiar to you.
How do you get the volume?
Yeah, so Kathleen, I think you're just gonna have to mute everybody.
Hopefully they'll let you print it when we're done.
Okay, so you got it? Okay. This presentation is going to assume that you are familiar with the DBE program, Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program. If not, and you're new to your office maybe, and you've been asked to join the presentation, please follow up with Kathleen or me after the presentation so we can share more with you about the program. Very basic. This is a federally mandated program that looks to create equity in all the modes of transportation that have federal funding. So we're going to this place of equity in which some people need more than others, and we're all getting to the place where we want to ring the bell, right? So, so we'll take you on this journey with us. What I wanted to start out doing with everybody is really celebrate together, because we have all worked very hard to get to a place where we exceeded the goal in the last federal fiscal year. So the federal fiscal year runs from October through September, so it kind of does that bridge over 2 years, and that forms the full federal fiscal year. That's how we base our federal funds, and we track our DBE goal. That overall goal was 12.41%. And both the construction and consulting commitments together achieved at 14.57. So we did really well with a lot of dollars. We were close to $1 billion in federal funding alone. So it was a big lift, and so everybody did great working together to do this. That was 42 million up from the previous federal fiscal year. So, so more dollars getting committed to DBEs. The commitment breakout, when you look at our minority versus non-minority, this has been stable for probably the last 6 or more years. We have a breakout of about 52 million to minority men and women, 89 million to non-minority men and women. There's that other category in DBE certification, and that would fall into this non-minority area too. And looking at the comparison for the previous federal fiscal year, we were up a bit, about 2% for Asian Pacific and Hispanic American participation, down a little under 3% on the subcontinent Asian American participation. And then non-minority Black and Native Americans did remain steady. There's a little bit of growth for Black American female-owned companies. So we're really looking at that area to progress as we have more firms join us as well. Big standout to note is that $20 million in commitments after contract execution on the construction side was captured. So that was all your work to put in the attachment A's, get those signed. I know it was quite the task, and it was a pretty big job on our end as well to process and verify all these commitments, but it paid off, and we were able to capture $20 million, which if you think of the previous year when we first started our concentrated effort on collecting, we had $2 million collected. So a very significant increase there. So we want to keep steady with that. When we look at the payments, because it's more than just commitments that make a difference, right? We want to make sure DBs are actually getting paid as well. So comparing to 2020, about an additional $6 million in actual payments for the ongoing projects to DBEs. Importantly, 190 DBE firms were paid. So that is up significantly from the previous year of 128 firms paid. So that'll be part of our ongoing efforts to make sure that we continue to build that bench and that there are available DBEs to participate in all of these opportunities. And we did remain steady with the closed projects for both years with over 100 million paid to DBEs on the closed contracts annually. So when you look at that, that's over 190 million in payments annually in those last 2 years to DBEs. So we're happy to see that the money and the actual payments and commitments are consistent. And a brief look at the commitments overall from 2016 to 2021. You can see the consultant commitments there in the blue, and the orange are the construction commitments combined is that gray line. And so we built up 2016, 2017, 2018 high point, then kind of went down again, built back up. We are at that 2018 level again now. So we're very happy to see that, we're heading in the right direction there, and that we apparently have the capacity in the DB pool to do that as well. And a look at the assigned goals versus the achieved goals since 2016. 2016 had a higher goal. Those are always based on the previous years and the existing ready, willing, and able pool of DBEs. So at that point, that triennial, which would have been 2015, 16, 17, had the 14.13% assigned goal, and you can see that the goals were not achieved in either year. Then we moved on to the next triennial, 2018, 19, and 20. That had a 12.38% goal. We did achieve that goal in 2018, and that was you'll recall where the other $130+ million, that was a high achieving year, and then started to go down again, very close in 2020. That was pretty painful for me personally that we missed that goal by 0.07%. I'm guessing we probably had a few extra commitments out there that we just didn't get to process. So I'm going to look at that as a positive, and then certainly propelled us into a very strong 2021 where we exceeded that goal. And when we look at our GFE requests, the blue line are the construction requests. Up until 2020, those were all also approved. So you can see this was one of the reasons that FHWA had cause for alarm. We were one of the highest in GFE approvals in the states. And so the mandate came to us to do something about this. And as you know, we've all participated in these efforts and started to get that number to go down. So 2020, we were at 93, and then in 2021, we had 50 requests, 45 were actually approved. The requests for consulting GFEs are a little different because they're based on goals that would have been set about 3 years ago. So we can't really address those through our current GFE process, but once we start putting goals on the consultant projects again, which there is a goal on a project in the January solicitation, I believe, then it would become applicable again. There's the possibility for GFE requests. So that said, how do we maintain this forward momentum? What are some of the strategies that WisDOT has been looking at to make sure that we can help support DBEs and increase DBE participation? So one of the things we're doing is a lot of focused outreach to our DBE firms, calling them, asking if they're interested in WisDOT work. We know that a lot of times firms are not interested in working with WisDOT. They're comfortable with municipal work or some other form of work, and the certification just helps them out for something else that they're going to do. When we have that information, then we can also let you know when you reach out and ask about firms in the area. We have more information. But importantly, we can really focus on those who do want WisDOT work. What's happening for them? Are they experiencing barriers? Are they successful? If so, can we help other firms be successful using the practices that these firms have in place? And also just making sure that DBEs know we're thinking about you. This is the DB office. We're here for you. We have support services. We want you to take advantage of those. We have a coaching program. We have mobilization loans. We have been working on website updates and wanting to give additional tools and resources that will help you access our current services, and also additional services that we're adding and resources that you may find at other agencies or community organizations. We want to make sure that firms know we have this structure in place, and we're always open as well to other suggestions of what would help you. So for DBEs that are on this call, reach out, really let me know, let us know. The team is here to try to put these support structures in place to help you be successful. And along those lines as well, if you are thinking about areas that you could expand into, maybe as a landscaping firm, you want to consider beam guard installation. We can help you figure out how to do that, get the codes to do that, the type of training you need. If you're in the mentor protege program, your mentor can get credit while training you to do something in an expansion area. So there are lots of options here that we want to work with you on to help you be able to offer the most for your business while also examining, risks and what you need to put in place to do this in a way that will actually support your business. And we're also focusing on recruitment of new firms. Of course, this is ongoing. We have a particular focus in the northern regions where we have quite a lot of work. Northwest region in particular has a lot of bridge work. And so we're hoping to get more DBEs who can do that type of work. So working on that in Northeast region, we know 41 will come back online. So we're trying to get ahead of all the work coming so that we're prepared when that big opportunity comes back. Another thing that we are doing with UWM is a focus study for 18 months. It's going to focus on how can we identify the barriers that DBEs are facing and put measures in place to remove those barriers. This is sort of two-part, looking at surveys of our existing DBEs as well as the other states, and identifying the best practices from other states. We are looking at how to take that successful DBE firm methodology and apply that for other firms. And we really want to look at our own award process, and particularly as this applies to consulting, what could we potentially do differently? And of course, we're always wanting to make sure that we're promoting transparency. So this ongoing study you may be hearing from one of our researchers as it moves along. We're looking at ways to also diversify consultant contracts. We noticed that it's a small number of DBEs who are responding to solicitations and being selected for solicitations. The majority of those that I see are it's very similar to what we see for quoting in the construction side. It's the same firms that are either selected or rejected continually. But what about the other 700 firms or so that are not engaged? What can we do there? So in the consulting side, we're looking at how small purchase contracts might be used to our advantage. That's where we can invite 3 or more firms to respond. So those are contracts of a certain size. A CFR is not required, so this could help a small firm that has not been engaged to get engaged. We can also set up a notification system where some firms will sign up and say, yes, please notify us of certain small purchase contracts, and then we would invite those firms to respond. We can create smaller packages for select design projects, and this can also translate into smaller construction projects in the LET if we are intentional about it when we start out. So that might create some more prime opportunities there. We want to diversify selection panels so that as much representation as possible can happen in those panels that are actually making the choices on the consultant selections. We want to recommend that regions select one new firm to work with. Possibly each solicitation, we have to sort of figure this out as we work with the Southeast region. It might not be each solicitation, we might have to have a little more room than that, but we also really need to encourage the prime consultants to be working with new firms because it's hard to select a new firm to prime that we've never worked with. So if we can really get our prime firms to be selecting DBEs to work with, new firms, that is going to help. And, we have a lot of money coming in on the consulting side, both sides, but it's going to be very intense and a lot of opportunities in consulting. So we want to make sure that that we can really make sure DBEs have these opportunities. And then once we develop some best practices here, we want to take this pilot to other regions. And Christina, I'll stop for 1 second. I just want to check if there are any questions or hands.
No, at this point, I haven't had any questions other than Sally Schroeder asked if this was going to be recorded and posted on the site.
Okay, it will be recorded.
How you wanted to handle that?
Sure. Yeah, thanks, Sally. It'll be recorded. We should decide where we want to post it. But yes, we recorded it. So, okay, you want to know what you can do. Well, keep attending sessions like this, conferences, keep providing your input to us because we really are growing and able to accomplish this and maintain forward momentum when we're working together and getting your feedback. We know we don't have all the answers, so we sort of start in developing policies or procedures, and then we need your feedback. We do consistently update the DBE contracting website. That's kind of like our landing page, similar to HCCI's notification. We do put ASP and letting notifications on HCCI as well. But I recommend that you come to this DBE contracting page to get the information that you really need about the details of what we're doing. You can also see an archive there of changes or updates if you need to go back a bit, you missed something. Participate in the Mentor Protege program. We do have mentors still waiting in the wings. We really encourage our DBEs to become a protege, take advantage of this program. All of the pairs involved right now will tell you the benefit that both have had. There's a lot of learning that happens here all around. So it's a great opportunity. Participate in that program if you can. Let me know if you want more information. Coaching is a different segue here that we've created when people aren't maybe quite ready for the Mentor Protege program, or it's a sort of outside the box type of thing that they're doing. We have a planner, for instance, who probably won't have straightforward contracting opportunities, but still can benefit from some coaching. So let us know if that's the type of opportunity you're looking for. Talk to each other, of course, this is essential. The way that we meet goals is not all on to the primes, right? DBEs, you got to reach out to. We are here to help you do that. Take a look at the e-blasts or the newsletters we send. Prior to our upcoming workshop, we have the opportunity for DBEs to reach out to us, ask us to help you build your capability statement and get that crafted and ready so that when you come to the networking sessions at the workshop, you've got a one-pager you can share with primes, and then you can use that as you're making new relationships along the way. Spread the word about our program. A lot of times, word of mouth is what makes things happen. You tell a friend about the program, and that helps them have a little confidence to reach out to us, and we can share application requirements, let them know what they need to do to get engaged. And again, just let us know how we can improve, because we know we're working together here. We know there's a lot of experience out there as well that we need to take into account as we make inlets forward. And then a few general program updates. You have hopefully received this information via email, but I just wanted to make sure that we cover it briefly here. We did some updates in the neutral participation tracking for trucking. This is the area that I mentioned previously that we had collected an additional $20 million after contract execution. That is this neutral participation piece, anything that happens after goal, right? So for trucking, we are able to look at CRCS to determine that there have been new payments made to DBE truckers. I know a lot of you are out there right now saying, yeah, right, we told you this. Yes, this is true. We had to figure out a way to actually do it so that FHWA would be satisfied with that and that we felt like we were responsible about tracking the commitment. So for any trucking that is already on your initial commitment, your 1506 or the entry of that DBE commitment with bid, you will not need to give us an additional attachment A. There could be some times where we want to reach out to the DBE to verify how they're able to complete that commitment. It's important for DBEs to also make sure that they're entering any other trucks that they are including on the commitment into CRCS so that we can track credit appropriately. And we also want to make sure everybody's getting paid, right? So, so it's important to have that piece in place. If you have a new trucking assignment, then we would ask you to put in that attachment A with the commitment estimate as a full estimate. So not $1 or $100. What do you think that commitment will actually be? And we understand that there can be some adjustment with trucking. So hopefully that is going to help reduce a lot of paperwork for everybody. We're not having to get all of these signed. We're not having to verify individual documents, but our team will definitely be verifying in CRCS. We have a flyer that was sent to you. Hopefully you've received it, but it's also posted on the website, or reach out to me if you need some more information on that. So that's some forward momentum we are happy about.
Okay.
Offsite hauling was something we identified in CUF monitoring, that's commercially useful function monitoring. CUF really was something that we have been rolling out over the last couple of years. This was another area that FHWA asked us to focus on and make sure that we were consistently monitoring DBEs on every project with federal funding to make sure that DBEs did have control of their work, their equipment, their teams, their payroll, etc. So in this process, we started to identify some areas that we were not aware of, and one of those was offsite hauling. And what that refers to is any hauling that's taking place in which the DBE trucker doesn't go on site at all to the site where the commitment has been associated. So it's between a pit and a plant or something like that, but they're not on site, and it might even be before the project has even started. So as we reached out to industry and asked about this practice, it became clear that it's very prevalent. So we had to figure out a way to address it if we wanted to still be able to allow credit. So we did work with a team, including region representation from Southeast region and industry and DBEs. Some DBE truckers were involved as well, and my team. And so we did come up with a way for us to verify this type of hauling. So you will see that it starts with a process on the new attachment A, also available on the website. But if you are ever looking for the most current forms, those are on the official forms page for WisDOT. So it'll always be there. If you type in 1506, look for that form, grab the official form. The update on this particular attachment A has a box to indicate that there's going to be offsite hauling involved in the job. And so that will alert the project engineer to be asking questions about that hauling during the life of the project. They may do spot checks. We may reach out to also request that haul tickets or plant pit tickets, time cards, other types of documentation are submitted so that we can verify that haul. But in general, the way we're going to start out tracking it is through the attachment A and then the CUF monitor we'll verify that. Let me know if you have more questions about that. And
Madam-
finally, oh, yes,
Okay, I do have a few questions that came in.
great, okay.
I have, Janice Ryan asked when the DBE listing is updated, would it make sense to add a column for date of the update per contractor so that we can continue to use the formatted spreads that we already have and we can sort on that date to find what was updated?
Hey, Janice, that is a great question. I can look into that, but one of the other things that we wanted to share with you is that we are going to start monthly posting on the website any changes we've made to the directory so that you can see, in January, we added 10 firms, we took 5 firms off, we updated the phone number on these 3 firms, and that would be listed on a separate sheet. We will have that up this Friday for January. So that's a resource in the interim. But meanwhile, I can ask if adding a column with the updated date is possible. Thanks for that.
Okay, and then Julie Reimer added, in addition to Janice's question, said above the DBE listing, even adding a highlighted color to the DBE that has changed or added would be helpful. Trying to decipher the DBE list for changes that apply to our industry takes some time, and some sort of highlighting or dating would be helpful to keep our solicitation logs up to date. And that, I believe you just kind of answered that as well.
Yes, but thanks, Julie, and hi. I'm glad you're here. I'll pass these on because these are good ideas, and I think that whatever we can do to make this process smoother for everybody involved, and even us, right? Like I want to go and look at the directory and know which new DVs have just been added. So I will take these ideas to the team. And in the interim, just know that Friday we will post a list of the updated firms, so you will have that
Okay.
prior
And
to
then
any change.
I have one more question. Joe Davis is asking, will there be additional funding added to the loan mobilization program, and what is the dollar amount is the program currently funded at?
Sure. Hi, Joe. Welcome. So currently it is a state statute funded program. That funding hasn't changed since, I don't know, the 80s. And it was set at $300,000 at that time. We're around 400,000 at this point because we had very good success with minimal defaults. So that, we didn't actually have to tap into those guarantee funds. What we're trying to do right now in bringing that program back online is demonstrate that it is needed. So we'll need DBEs to start requesting the guarantees for loans, and then we can demonstrate that, yep, we actually have a demand. We need increased funds so that we can make this opportunity available to more DBEs. So I believe there's also a maximum of, it's either 90,000 or 100,000 on the guarantee itself, and we'll only do up to 90% of the actual loan. So there's some other details in there, but we're really hoping that we can get more funding into that program if it starts to be utilized. Thanks, Joe. Good then, Christina. Shall I move on?
I think we're good.
Okay, great. So commodity and bulk supply purchases. We have been talking about this for a while. And what really needed to happen was we needed to get a process in place and get that out there so that you could really take advantage of this opportunity. So what is this opportunity? Look in ASP3 as well. It's been in there probably forever because I did inherit it. But again, we just needed a process. So you can purchase bulk supplies or commodities like fuel from a DBE upfront prior to the season beginning, prior to using these actual supplies or commodity on a job. And then what we will need you to do is give us the information as you start to use these supplies. So saws, is kind of my go-to example. You bought $50,000 worth of saws. You're going to use them throughout the entire season. So, we get your original invoice, and then as you start to use that, you put it on your attachment A. You've got your invoice attached. You've got the attachment A showing us you're going to use $10,000 worth of those saws. And then we will do the deduction on our end and kind of keep a bank for you until you've run out of that credit that you purchased in advance. So it's the only way that we can really bank credit. And it's not even called that, but if I know that in the past there have been questions about exceeding DBE credit on one project and could you apply it to another project that maybe you were short on. No, we can't do that, but you could buy these purchases in advance and apply them along the life of the project for the current federal fiscal year. So we're always wanting to make sure that we're current in this year. So questions about that, definitely ask us. We do understand with fuel that it will be, you're going to do your best to estimate, and then we can calibrate once you have actually used the amount of fuel you would use for that job. And there are some DBE fuel suppliers, so go check the directory. And then bid letting updates. Well, beginning in February, staying the same, you're going to submit your commitment for DBE on that 1506 as a PDF or entering it into BidX, same as you have been doing. You can still attach the attachment A or quotes with the bid itself. But we've added an additional hour so that if you cannot get the attachment A's or quotes attached to your bid under all of the pressure of that time frame, get them to us within the next hour via eSubmit. eSubmit instructions posted on the website and with this notification that went out to everybody, but let us know if you are unfamiliar with eSubmit. That is going to be the method that is best for you, best for us to get your documentation. If you did not meet the DBE goal, then we will look for, same as before, your GFE documentation by 11 o'clock on Wednesday via eSubmit. You still have that time frame to submit any attachment A's that were not submitted on Tuesday. So you're, with bid or within that hour, attachment A's or quotes, right? So we're good. We're processing everything. You're getting those final attachment A's in. You might realize that an attachment A that you submitted with your bid or within that hour was not signed by the DBE. Okay, just get it into us by Tuesday, or I'm sorry, by Wednesday via eSubmit, 11 o'clock. So we're just trying to really, the only thing changing here is that we built in this buffer hour for you to try to mitigate some of that panic that can happen right at bid time. And then we did want you to know that we're not going to reach out to contractors anymore to inform you of any missing documents or anything that you might need a signature or a date or things like that. At this point, we know that you really know what needs to get submitted. We see very minimal outliers on this, and many of those are things that we can address later if needed. We're missing a date. Okay, that's not going to make your bid non-responsive. So those kinds of things are really the level of error we're seeing right now. So we are not, we're feeling confident about you being able to do this. We also just want to make sure that we don't miss anyone, right? So that you're sitting out there thinking, well, I didn't hear from the DBE office, so everything's good. And then you are missing something. So just make sure you're really clear that you've submitted everything. After it's in, recheck it. Check what you submitted via eSubmit. Another advantage of eSubmit is that it will give you a notification for sure that you submitted documents. If you don't get that, you didn't submit it through eSubmit, unlike the DBE alert, which may or may not give you notification. Okay, any other questions for me before we move to Kathleen? Because Kathleen is going to give a little brief update or some more information about GFE while we have a big audience.
Okay, Madalena, Deanna, Fremont is asking, bid letting update, must we use eSubmit or can we continue to use DB Alert email?
Yes, use eSubmit, please. So if you are not familiar with eSubmit, it's familiar now. My team is happy to help you. You do need to have us give you access. So get your WAMS ID if you don't have it, and then let us know, and we'll make sure that you are verified for access to use the platform.
Okay, and then I guess Trevor Wallner replied with, our goal would be to submit all attachment A's with 100% accuracy at time of bid. If somehow we were to discover an error in an attachment A sent in with the bid, may we submit a corrected version prior to 11 a.m. on the following day?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, thanks, Trevor. Just let us know why you're submitting that and what we should pay attention to. But yep, that is absolutely fine.
And I'm not seeing any more questions coming in, so.
Okay, great. Well, thanks for all those good questions, and I'll take more questions once we get to the end here, but we'll move on to Kathleen for now.
Okay.
Mhm.
Good morning, everyone. Just echoing what Madalena had just discussed regarding making your bid responsive. I wanted to make sure that everybody was aware of this table, and anybody who's had some recent GFE one-on-ones with me, I've directed prime contractors to this table on our website. I recommend to print it out for everybody to have it available. It's just always a great reference point of when the documentation is due, especially now that the DBE office is not going to be reaching out to prime contractors. So I just wanted to make sure everybody had this handy, and it's in table format. So I encourage everybody to print it out or somehow have it handy during bid time. So over the past couple of months, I've had really a lot of great conversations with prime contractors. And I think the state of Wisconsin is so lucky to have such great industry partners who all bring something different to the table as far as DBE participation. One thing that I've noticed, and again, for anybody who's had some GFE one-on-ones with me, I'm really encouraging everybody to take a fresh look at the solicitation that you're sending out there to DBEs. And there's, the solicitation first and foremost is your introduction email. What is this proposal? Where are the counties, where are the regions that these proposals are located in? And I also encourage prime contractors to consider highlighting your DBE successes and maybe bullet pointing those in the beginning of your email. I tend to always think in threes with bullet points. So, thinking about your company and thinking about what you bring to the table as far as DBE participation. And the email body, the email that you're sending out, this is also a great, a great place to kind of put the standard things that we're looking for as far as some of the solicitation language. So again, you're highlighting where those proposals are located, what county, what region, when your quotes are due, that you're willing to accept DBE quotes on items that you might self-perform, where the plans and specs can be found. If your company is willing to answer questions regarding insurance, credit, equipment, supplies, that type of thing, you can put that type of bullet point. And who are the best contacts in your company? I am a firm believer in always developing a strong template. So developing this template that kind of works, proposal to proposal, letting to letting, where you're, changing the information, specific to those particular proposals. And, it just, again, highlighting the reasons why DBEs should, quote your company. Just other little things, I did this in Outlook, sometimes I change the background color to, kind of grab attention to, the particular email, anything that can kind of, give attention to, the reader of the email. And so I just encourage all prime contractors to, kind of brainstorm within your company. And, I think this is a good thing for, a couple people to get together on and just, develop a great email that can, kind of serve as your template going forward. Okay. And then over the holiday break, I think sometime in December, I took a look at the sample solicitation letter that was included in ASP3. And, this again is kind of echoing that same theme of looking at your solicitation letter and looking at ways that, it can be reformatted differently, where you can, again, highlight your DBE successes. What are you bringing into the table with your DBE partnership? And, again, I took a look at the letter. Keep in mind, the sample solicitation letter is, substantially the same letter that DBEs received. So I looked at it and I thought, putting it in a question and answer format, made it a little bit more readable. Obviously, you want to communicate all that important information that we're looking for in that letter, but also an opportunity to, again, give DBEs the reason why they want to partner with your particular company. Page 2, again, is the selected work types. This, if you look at the DT 1202, this is item number 2. So you always want to make sure that you're breaking out those subcontractable opportunities for the DBEs. So, including the page 2, which most of the prime contractors do, but also, highlighting, if there's a difference between, if you're bidding on 2 proposals and not all the work types apply to each proposal, really identifying which work types are applicable. And, again, putting all the pertinent information in there. Again, this is just an example. I know that there was a prime contractor that looked at this and, did their version of it. And I thought it was great for the January letting. Make this personal to your company and meaningful as well. So any questions on solicitation before we move on? All right. So sound reasoning. So looking at the DT 1202, obviously there's a lot of ways to demonstrate good faith effort. And one of the most important and impactful ways is number 5, which is rejecting DBEs based on sound reasoning. This is spelled out in the appendix, which I have listed, listed in the beginning of the slide. And this reminder is also included in the DT 1202 workbook in the intent to award tab as well. And simply stated, what this means is avoid making decisions strictly based on cost. And in the second bullet point, I included an example below, but I also want to indicate on that intent to award by work type, there is a quote analysis tool, and I really encourage everybody to use it because it provides both the dollar amount and the percentage difference between the quotes. So if you look at a sawing quote, oftentimes, not all the time, these are quotes that come in kind of close together. And if you're looking at these 2 amounts that I have listed on this slide, $3,567 is about 19% higher than the low quote. However, that's only the dollar difference is only $578. So in looking at those 2 figures, you want to consider the total impact of the increased cost within your total bid when making that final awarding decision. And that is going to be different proposal to proposal, but we're looking, when we receive a GFE request, these are the things that we're looking at. We're looking at the percentage difference, we're looking at the dollar difference. So we're asking prime contractors also to do the same. And I really encourage everybody to print out that sample intent to award by reasoning example that I previously provided in the sample. And that is simply a reminder and a reference guide of the type of sound reasoning that we're looking for. It's going to vary. I certainly can't think of every example of, potentially why a DBE might be rejected, but we also want to understand those reasons because we want to then possibly go back to the DBE and kind of do some further investigation of what really happened in this circumstance. Because if there's an area of opportunity that we can assist with the DBE, we obviously want to know that. And so that's why it's so critical that we're asking, for this piece to be more complete. And so, Madalena, I don't know if you want to
Yeah, thanks.
add anything more.
Yeah, I think that just referring people back to the 1202 itself is really helpful because
Mhm.
the actual form gives you suggested actions. It's not exhaustive, but right there on that form are ways to address each of those areas on the form. It does give you some examples of what sound reasoning is. So that's there. And of course, the reason that we spend so much time and try to give you these tools and resources to undertake good faith effort is so that you can meet the goal, right? So you're taking all of these steps that ultimately get you to a place where you do not have to put in a good faith effort request because you didn't meet the goal. You've been able to meet it. So that does take working together, DBEs and primes. Reaching out in between the letting is also really important. You know, sometimes we'll see that there's an anomaly maybe on the DBE quote where they had the wrong number, the quantity was off on an item. And we can see that based on the other quotes. And so that's an opportunity for you, Prime, to reach out to the DBE in between, you know, after the letting and say, hey, did you notice that, you know, your quantities were off? That assumes you don't have time to do it prior to the letting. What I hear a lot of times is, you know, I got my quote at 9 o'clock on the morning. I just didn't have time to reach back out. Okay, understood. But do it in between if you can, because we want to make sure that everybody knows where to be finding the information as well. So with that, any questions related to faith effort?
I did have a question come in. Tim McGuire is asking, as a prime contractor, we are soliciting approved DBEs from WisDOT. Are we expected to solicit and hire DBEs that don't know where to find the proposals and specs for projects? Then they ask, have the approved DBE contractors been vetted by WisDOT? And he also goes on to ask, how does the prime contractor know what an unreasonable amount is? What criteria does WisDOT use? You said $500 based on how big a project should be accepted. Once again, what criteria does WisDOT use?
Sure, both great questions. First question, you will have to evaluate whether you have received a complete quote. If you can tell from that quote that the DB does not seem to have accessed the information needed, if you have time, point them in the right direction. If you don't have time and you have to reject them based on that, then that would be something to include in sound reasoning, right? And then follow up with them. We don't have a process to vet or train every DBE prior to them taking on work, but we do make sure that they can demonstrate technical competence in the work area. So they can do landscaping in areas that they are approved for. Have they worked with the state before? Possibly not. So that's an area for us to work with them and for you to work with them, and where we do encourage that firms get into the mentor protege program right away so that they understand how to access the various types of information that's abundantly available on WisDOT's website, but not always so easy to find. And how do you decide what's reasonable? Well, that is the $1 million question, and it's the one that you always have to determine for yourself based on how you're going to run your business. So in this case, the example, $578, that was reasonable for me, but it wasn't reasonable for you. Why not? You can explain that to us. But you know, it's going to have to be based on what's best for your business. Where can you adjust potentially in your other bid areas? Maybe you can do that and I can't. So we do understand it's a case by case basis, but we ask that you look a little outside the box of which this example represents. You know, 19%, that's something that could have made you immediately say, that's just too high. However, it's $578. Is it reasonable? Maybe. Maybe your overall bid is $5 million. It would be certainly difficult for you to argue $578 was not absorbable somewhere in the bid. But is this a very small contract, $500,000, I don't know, you know, so those types of variables are going to come in where you're going to have to make that call. But what we're saying overall is if you are coming to us saying, I rejected these DBEs simply because they were more expensive, we are going to have a question about that reasoning. Okay. I hope that helped him.
Okay, well then he added, and I'm not sure if that really answered this question, but he says, what criteria does WisDOT use to determine the increase in price by a prime contractor using a higher DBE price, 1% on the total bid? As a question mark. Then Janice Ryan asked, is there still the rule that if a DBE is within 5% of non-DBE, we have to use the DBE? Question mark. Then Tim comes back to ask if they haven't worked for the state, then they won't be an accepted DBE contractor. And how do we make that call when we don't know what WisDOT is looking for?
Okay, so let me try to back up. I think that the 1% that Tim is referring to is the suggestion that we have to primes to look at the representation of the difference in that DBE quote as it is represented to your entire bid. And if it's less than 1%, is that something that you could accept? If it's more than 1%, maybe that starts to be more difficult. So it's not a rule, it's just a suggestion. As with that 5% rule that Janice has alluded to, that's not a rule either, but it is something that I understand industry has sort of accepted as, well, you've got the 5% margin that you'll look at in variation, take the DBE if it's a 5% difference. If it's anything higher, don't take it. We don't subscribe to that rule. It is a case-by-case basis. So just like in the example still on the screen here, 19% here could arguably be reasonable. So that's, you know, much higher than the 5% split. So, but that was never a WisDOT rule. The regulation does not define reasonable. And I think probably you all know that from us having had this conversation. We've got some areas of gray and subjectivity within the regulation. So that's where you have to make a business decision. Okay, coming back to Tim's question then about if they haven't worked on WisDOT projects, they wouldn't be an accepted contractor. I'm not sure, Tim, if you're thinking about eligible bidders in terms of being a prime. And in that case, that's where they would need to be vetted through a different process, DBE contractors. But in order to be a subcontractor, just need to be registered in CRCS. So there is not the requirement to have worked on WisDOT projects in the past. Did I answer his whole question?
Yeah, I believe so. I was trying to see if I could find him and somehow make him unmute. I think he can unmute himself.
Okay.
If Tim wants to unmute himself.
Okay. Well, I know that this is definitely an area of questions. So I'm happy to continue conversations one-on-one as well.
I'm just wondering if they're trying to hire a DBE and it's a company that could qualify as a DBE. Is there an area where they could tell that company and how to get approved as a DBE?
Yes, definitely send them to the website. There is a page within our DBE pages that is certification eligibility requirements. And we're also working on adding some tutorials to that page. But at this point, there's plenty of information there to get someone started, and they can always reach out to our team as well if there are any other questions about how to do that. But yep, those recommendations are great. And it's actually perfect for primes to be recommending this to firms that might be eligible because you've already worked with that company as well. And so you're kind of removing that risk that that you might be a little hesitant to work with a new person. If you've worked with them, then you already are aware of how they work. Now
I have another question that just came in from Deanna Fremoff. She says, in one of the last lettings, we lost a contract worth nearly 1 million to another contractor by about 750. We carried a DBE amount well in excess of the contract requirement. We found out the winning bid was granted a waiver for the DBE. How can that playing field be made even?
Sure. Yeah, I hear you, Deanna. And so, part of making this good faith effort process available to everyone means that sometimes we're going to encounter some of those really painful instances in which the low bidder didn't meet the goal and they still are awarded the contract. They had to demonstrate good faith effort. So I can assure you that we weighed that. It doesn't really make you feel much better when you're losing a bid that close. What I've recommended to contractors is to look somewhere else in your bid if you have some room maybe in mobilization. So the example here, $578. Could you take it out of your mobilization? If you're feeling like that's the only area where you chose something, outside of what you were comfortable with, you took a higher amount, that is going to make your bid potentially higher. Is there some other place to adjust? And you have to decide that. I am admittedly not an expert in this area. I was recently invited by a contractor to come on site during bid letting morning, and I actually am really kind of excited to do that. I would like to experience what you're going through. I know that it's craziness. And I know that some of these decisions are really tough. So if there's a way for you to look at that overall bid and see where can you get rid of that $700 moving forward. Yeah, so sorry about that. I know it does hurt, but keep in mind, you might be that low bidder next time around who has demonstrated good faith effort, didn't meet the goal, and we're going to give you that consideration as well.
Okay, Madalena, and then Tim has commented again saying you are saying that differences in quotes, whether to use a higher DBE, is subjective. However, are we supposed to know what is the limit? You are telling us to break the ASP3 spec, which requires the lowest bid from the prime contractor.
Right. So ASP3 gets attached as a special provision, but the actual requirement from WisDOT regarding low bidder is that it is the lowest responsible bidder, and for meeting the regulation is lowest responsive bidder. So for the DBE portion, you must have all of the documents in and complete in the time frame told so that we can consider that bid responsive. But for WisDOT purposes of having an overall responsible bid, there are many requirements to make your bid responsible. And the DBE requirements are only one of them. So, hopefully that's answering your question. So we're not, the lowest bidder may not be the winning bidder. You're only apparent low until we've made sure that all the requirements of the bid have been satisfied. And that is a really good question to follow up with Jill Fairman on, because if you have questions related to what are those components, Jill's your expert on that. Okay, any more questions there? I'm anxious to get out of the screen because I want to be able to see whoever might be wanting to be on camera. So why don't I do this? I'm going to go forward. We'll just finish out this presentation quick, then I can take it down and we can chat with whoever wants to share anything or has other questions.
Yeah, the questions, there are no more at this point, so.
Thank you for those questions. And you will have an opportunity to see Kathleen and me on site in person if you come to day 2 of our DBE workshop. Many of you do attend this, so thank you, and thank you for participating in networking sessions. This year we're doing a hybrid version so that the first day of workshops will be online, and then second day networking, our awards luncheon opportunities are presented. So go on our website, get registered if you are not already. Couple of resources listed here, and this is the main website I always refer people to, DBE Contracting. Here's our interactive DBE map. If you use the map, there is a link in there to the directory itself. So you can work it that way from the map to the directory, but the directory itself doesn't have a link to the map. So if you want to see visually where DBEs are, you might want to start with the map. And then here is our contact information. So we'll turn this into a PDF, and Christina can get it out to everybody after so that you have links and access to the various different areas that we've talked about. So any questions? What about my DBEs out there? Any questions from you? Any comments about how this past season has gone for you? I do see DBEs. Maybe we're shy because there's so many people here. But doesn't the virtual environment sort of give you that ability to kind of put in? And I see my director is here. Hi, Leah.
Hi there, Madalena. I think we often get a lot of questions about, what's, I think, the definition of responsible and responsive. I'm not sure. I think it would be helpful maybe if we put some information together, maybe post something on our website, because I think there, is not that clarification. So just something to consider for us to think about, because I know it can be very challenging for contractors to understand our role when we're looking at the responsive portion of the process, because we have to reflect on what's in the federal regulations related to the DB program. So I just wanted to add that as something that we may want to think about internally.
Thanks. That's a good point. And that is a good reminder too, to let contractors know that each month we update our FAQ on the website. So the January one is about to go up, but we can add for February that related to that question that Leah just posed, and maybe be able to clarify a little bit more for you on responsive versus responsible. I believe that we have addressed the question about reasonable in that FAQ. So it may be in a previous month, but I believe it's in there. So, but always an area that we can highlight again, because I know that question continues to come up, and we can't give you a black or white answer on that. That really is a business decision, but we hope to be able to give you at least a little bit guidance that can help you make the decision. So who else? I see lots of familiar names here. Anybody want to share anything who hasn't asked a question, or just wants to comment on experiences in this past year? Okay, well, not seeing anyone hands or questions or voice. Is there anything else, Kathleen, you would want to add?
Yeah, just two things. I know that prime contractors are phasing in different parts of the DT 1202 workbook, so thank you for doing that. If there's one tab in particular that you're looking at that you want to start out with or would be most helpful, it is the intent to award by work type tab. Again, has the code analysis tool on there in the right-hand corner. It has the questions that we're going to be asking every prime contractor, if you have a GFE request. So I would highly suggest looking at that, and again, printing out the sample version as I indicated before. And then just another thing, not really highlighted in the presentation, but I think there are so many things that prime contractors do that aren't being documented that actually do count for good faith effort. That goes in the way of the DBE the outreach that you're doing, the negotiations that you might be having, and the assistance that you're having with the DBEs. So I really encourage the prime contractors to come up with some, very simple ways to document those efforts, because certainly, if you're in a situation where you are putting in a good faith effort request, we want to consider everything that you've done, whether it be for that particular proposal or that letting, or, the months before, the things that you did the months before. So just want to put that out there as well.
Thanks. That's a good reminder. And, it also helps us when we see the types of things that you're doing with DBEs, because we can also then recommend to DBEs to reach out in that certain way, or that there might be this type of resource that they can get from a prime that might not have occurred to us. But when we see that that's the type of support you're providing, that can be something we suggest to DBEs, which then increases further engagement with you. So sharing that information might help your GFE, but it also may help to minimize the GFE in the future, because we're able to pass that information on. I see that there's a hand up, but I can't see whose it is.
It's Joe Davis. It's Joe Davis.
Okay. Hey, Joe.
Hey, Madalena, how are you? Get
Good,
well
thanks.
soon, okay? One thing that I noticed, and I've gotten an opportunity to talk about it internally, is that even though sometimes these good faith efforts were granted, I saw that the same contractor that had multiple contractors may not have met the goal on one contract, but just pretty much blew it out of the water in another contract. And so it's very interesting as you go through the 1506 and the ASP3s, that it kind of reveals those type of things that, and I'm proud to say it was a WTBA member who actually did this, but it shows that sometimes you might not be able to meet that goal on one contract, but you have the opportunity to actually increase your, or either achieve or exceed your goal on the other contract. And the contract that they actually exceed their goal on was at a higher dollar amount, which means that the utilization of DBEs and also the what DBEs actually got out of the contract was much more. So those are the type of things CBG is taking a look at now, and it is it's a good thing for the industry when it comes to the utilization of DBEs.
Absolutely, yes, that's a good point. And when we do our team reviews, we also do take into account all of the bids that particular bidder has put in, whether or not they were apparent low. We're looking at what were they able to meet the goal. And so those efforts do pay off. While we have to do an individual determination on every project, we will look at overall efforts. So that's a good point. Thanks. Okay, I'm going to look at comments quick just to see if there are any other. Okay, Tim. Back in the day, it was considered bid rigging to negotiate with another contractor during the bid process. Has that changed? So that the question that you're asking there, should you go to one bidder and say, hey, I got a quote for $150 on this, will you match that or go lower? We are certainly not recommending that you're doing that. So yeah, anything considered bid rigging, that is not something we're condoning or asking you to do here. So so please don't go down that road. Negotiating, when we talk about negotiating on that 1202 and you're looking at the quote you got from the DBE or from someone else, you may want to go back to them and say, are you able to untie some of these items? Are you able to work with a DBE supplier who might be able to bring in some other items for you? So that type of a negotiation is what we look at, but we can talk to you more about that if it'll be helpful. But I think the 1202 itself gives some recommendations for that and what that means too. Okay, one more from Tim. How does the requirement in Grant County for DB goal from 1% in an earlier letting and 4% in later lettings what changed. So this will always be project-based. The DBE goal will be based on subcontractable opportunities. So that's number one, but also it depends at what time of the year we are at. So a project that was originally let at 1% may have been a point in the year where we knew we were going to achieve the overall DBE goal, and we need to start backing off of assigned goals. And at that point, we are required to lower our goals because we know we're on track. The regulation says meet as much of your goal as you can through neutral participation. So if that project then is let at another point, so say now it's let in November of the next federal fiscal year, we are not able to demonstrate at this point that we are meeting the goal. So now we're going to go back simply to what are the subcontractable opportunities and plug those in, and also look at geographic location to kind of calibrate to make sure that we have DBs available to do that type of work in that area. So I hope that answered that question. And yes, Brian, we'll share the PowerPoint. We'll just turn it into a PDF and send it out to you after the meeting. Good questions, everyone. I'm still interested in hearing from some of our DBEs out there. I see your names. I want to call on you, but I don't want to put anybody on the spot, so I won't do it. But I am curious to hear some DBE voices and how this year went for you. I know that there have been challenges everyone is experiencing, so it's particularly amazing that the program did so well considering all of those other pressures that we're under. So I'm hoping as some of that is alleviated and we start moving out of the COVID age, that we can be even more successful. So we're definitely here to have those conversations with you. Kathleen is available for one-on-one sessions. I'm always available for whatever question you may have. If I don't have the answer, I will get you to the right person. And we just want to keep this dialogue going. So anything we didn't cover, reach out. Anything you need more information on, we are here, and we're really looking forward to seeing as many of you as possible in person in March. We'll be wearing our masks, but you can see our eyes smiling. So, so looking forward to that. Thanks so much, everybody, for participating today. Kathleen, should you send them off?
Yes, so thank you so much again. We really appreciate the engagement that we have received in both the earlier session that we had this in January and this session as well. And, as Madalena said, we are both here to answer any questions. Any questions you have regarding GFE, please feel free to reach out. I never want anybody struggling through the process, especially with the new forms. So I'm always here to answer questions.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right. So thank you all. Have a great rest of your week.